Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of Your Spiritual Journey. This is Dr. Bob, and this is the space and the place where we get to talk about issues important to your soul. As usual, we would like you to like us, or subscribe, or just follow us. Whatever floats your boat. But we want to be here for you for a long time to come. So today's guest is Tara Perry. This Dr. Tara Perry is a clinical hypnotherapist and a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. She specializes in core trauma transformation, helping people get to the root of their biggest block, connect their authentic selves, and thrive in deep, confident peace. Boy, does that sound nice. Deep, confident peace. For 25 years, she has successfully treated celebrities, Olympians, first responders, world record holders, doctors, scientists, teachers, parents, and children. She's been featured on Lifetime Television, Esquire Magazine, TravelHost Magazine, UCLA Bruin, and many others. I'm not going to go through the whole list here. Just to let you know, she's been out and about for quite a while. She was chosen to be the first acupuncture teacher at the famous Arthur Ashe Center at UCLA, and as well as the #1 acupuncture college in California. She hosts her own podcast, Next Level Healing, available on all major platforms. And I will have all of her different social media outlet links on our website at yourspiritualjourneypodcast.com. So if you're looking for any of those links and want to follow up with her, that information will be available to you. So without further comment, I'm going to turn the mic over to you. And Tara, if you will, you know our format. Begin with your spiritual journey from childhood to the present, and then I'll ask you a few questions, okay?
Well, thank you, Dr. Bob. I really appreciate that. Well, I was lucky enough to be raised in a household that was at least nutritionally oriented. My father was on the board of the Price Pottenger Foundation, so I was able to know how good it was to have clean, organic, whole food available when I was growing up. We didn't have white flour and white sugar in the house, which at that time they thought Twinkies was a vitamin, so that was a huge step in the right direction. And then after graduating from UCLA, I went to work in the film business, the entertainment business, for 5 years, and I was at the #1 talent agency in Hollywood, and it was pretty much thought to be the center of the universe. The competition was tremendous. We had lawyers and MBAs from Harvard and Stanford working in the mailroom for minimum wage just for an opportunity to get started there. Yeah, it was wow. Very, very, and still is highly, highly, highly competitive. And I, was blessed to experience that, and two of the top guys, the man who ran the agency and the head of the television department, both wanted me to work for them. But I just felt like my soul wasn't receiving what it wanted through helping other people. So I called it my homeopath and asked him what I would do if I wanted to do what he did, because I just watched him heal people. And when he told me, it's just like the lights went on, and I started acupuncture school 2 weeks later, went to train in China for a year after that. And that was an amazing experience. And then fortunately, after 23 years of doing acupuncture, nutritional medicine, and helping people through that, I found that I'm very good at helping people find what's stuck in their subconscious mind. Scientists now know that only 5 to 10% of our brain is our conscious mind. The other 90 to 95% is our subconscious mind. So the reason I've found that people often go through 10, 20, 30, 40 years of therapy and don't get what they want is that they're pushing things around the conscious mind, and they're not going into the to the deeper subconscious mind where they're firing and wiring patterns that they've been firing since childhood. So usually I find that somewhere between the ages of 2 and 10, somebody went through an experience. I'm sorry, my cat is saying hello here.
What's the cat's name?
Putty, like I did see a Putty cat. Remember
Okay.
Putty and Sylvester?
Sure.
I did see a Putty cat. Tweety bird. So I found that most of us have programming that got stuck into us between the ages of 2 and 10. It can be earlier than that. It can be later than that. But we fired and wired neural pathways that neurons that fire together wire together. That's Donald Hebb's law. Back in 1948, he discovered this. And when we strongly have a clear thought with a clear emotion, they get stuck together. And then we fire and wire that pattern often for the rest of our lives. We're firing and wiring the same patterns that we did yesterday, the day before, the year before, the decade before. And so it's very difficult to change those without having some intervention. But it's not very hard when you're working with somebody to just get into a relaxed state, find out what those patterns are, why they got fired and wired in there, what they're trying to accomplish, which is typically your safety. Your subconscious mind doesn't really care if you're happy, but it does want you to be safe. But it's like an iPhone 14 operating on iPhone 4 technology. And what we want to do is upgrade it so that you're not operating as the 2-year-old, the 4-year-old, the 6-year-old that was traumatized as a young person. You want to be operating as the accomplished, loving, lovable adult that you are today.
Yeah. Can I back you up a bit and get
Sure.
back to your childhood before we get into other people's childhoods? Just were you raised in any particular religious tradition or, other than healthy food?
Yeah, I actually wasn't. My parents actually saw how a lot of organized religion caused a lot of problems around the world. So I would say they were spiritual, but not religious.
Okay.
They definitely operated by the golden rule. Treat others as you would have others treat you. And that actually exists in every single religion around the world. So that was definitely part of my upbringing. Honesty, good character, things like that.
Okay, so because you jumped so quickly to college and then into your work life, and at that point when you were working, you determined that work did not feed your soul the way that that you wished.
Yeah, it just felt empty. I realized there was a lot of money to be made. There was a lot of fame, but there weren't a lot of happy people around. I didn't see a lot of well-adjusted, happy people, and I just felt a yearning to contribute something deeper,
Yeah.
and certainly helping people retrieve their health that they've lost, whether that's mental, physical, or spiritual, is really important. And Chinese medicine is very much mind, body, spirit. It doesn't compartmentalize things.
Right. Right. Okay, so you are then working with both acupuncture and hypnotherapy. And
Well, currently I'm focused on the hypnotherapy because I'm very surprised at how connecting to the subconscious mind removes so much of the blocks to healing that once those are removed, healing can actually occur. For example, I just worked with somebody who had 40 years of back pain from having broken his back. Now, one might think that chiropractic or acupuncture would be perfect for that, but he had already done all those things. He was all excited when he found I was an acupuncturist, but I said, look, you've done acupuncture and you've done chiropractic. Why don't we just go into your subconscious mind, find out what's preventing the healing from happening in the first place? Because if you break your femur, which is the thickest bone in your body, that should be healed better than ever in 8 weeks. That's how the body works. It's designed to, heal itself. So if something's getting in the way of that, then if you remove that blockage, the person can heal. And so in 60 days, he didn't have the pain anymore. And I asked him, I said, are you surprised that you were able to resolve this so quickly and easily after 40 years of having chronic back pain? He said, not really. He knows how powerful his subconscious mind is because he's an advanced meditator. He has experienced how the health benefits of going into that silent contemplative space is. And they're starting to measure this. Joe Dispenza is probably measuring this more than anybody, that if you go into heart and brain coherence, which is a known measurable phenomena, many things in your body improve. The health benefits, the mental, emotional, and physical benefits are tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah, I followed and still follow Dispenza's work, and it is pretty fantastic. The amount of research and data that's available on those sorts of things now.
Well, what's fascinating is he has a whole team of scientists. They're actually releasing a movie at the end of this month on the work called Source. So that's pretty exciting. But the scientists, none of them were meditators before they started looking at the data, and now they're all meditating because they're like, well, we're not stupid. We're gonna take advantage of this, because they're actually isolating the proteins that protect the cells and keep there's all kinds of anti-cancer benefits that go on in the cells. So everybody that's willing to do this, I have them doing it simultaneously with my work, because my work is highly individualized to helping that person remove whatever their individual blocks are. But if they do the concurrent work of getting that heart and brain coherence elevated and more energized, then they're going to receive excellent additional benefits from that.
Yeah. I guess I'm a little surprised when I think of the journey that I've taken, and I'm a Reiki master, and see that as a way to unblock those blockages, just as I see acupuncture as a way to unblock those blockages. But it's been a while since I've considered hypnotherapy as, doing that same thing from a different perspective. And you have...
Well, I would say I'm a bit unusual, because I've trained with unique people around the world, and I almost want to call it unhypnosis, because it's not causing anybody to think or believe anything that they don't want to think or believe. It's just taking out the negative filters that they have had installed that are hurting them in the first place. So it really should be called unhypnosis.
Yeah, that's...
And as Joe Dispenza is pointing out, the pharmacy of chemicals that our brains are capable of producing, as, again, that heart and brain coherence becomes more in alignment, and we're not thinking, believing old patterns that aren't true for us anymore, then we are our brains are capable of releasing a lot of very beneficial chemicals and hormones and things that serve us at a higher level.
Yeah. I guess what I've been looking at more lately is where in the body those traumas are stored versus where in the mind or the subconscious those traumas are stored. Because
the body keeps the score.
So, boy, I've got to rethink, I guess, my path here, or at least take a deeper look at it. That's fascinating, or at least I find it fascinating. Audience, you'll just have to go along with me on this trip. Go ahead.
Well, when I discovered that the conscious mind is processing 40 bits of information per second, and the subconscious mind is processing 40 million bits per second, and that a lot of people don't get the results that they're looking for because they're trying to accomplish something with their conscious mind, but the subconscious mind might have counter programming in there, and often does, then the way to bring about massive, meaningful, deep change would be to influence the subconscious mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been recently introduced to muscle testing, where you can, the arm is put out and somebody puts pressure on it and asks questions, and your subconscious mind is tapped into that muscle movement more than your conscious mind. I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, Dr. David Hawkins wrote some beautiful books about that, Power versus Force, and Letting Go, and a couple of others. But I don't regret a lot in my life. But a friend of mine used to go listen to him speak in Sedona frequently, and I didn't go listen to him while he was still with us on planet Earth. But he was a psychiatrist that people would come from all over the world to see, and he was very devoted to muscle testing and measuring things through that methodology, and became famous around the world.
Yeah, I guess recently played around with that and experienced it and seen it really work. It does. It does work. So
Yeah.
when we look at how you work with this and get at people's blocks, and you put them, I don't know, are they in a trance state when they're under hypnosis? Is that what you would call it?
That's a great question. And a lot of people think that, they're used to watching Hollywood or Las Vegas and the shows where people get up and they get hypnotized and they cluck like chickens and do all kinds of crazy things. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about clinical hypnosis. And when you just get into a nice relaxed state, in fact, if you don't like the word hypnosis, you can say, look, we'll have a relaxed conversation. As soon as you slow down those brain waves, which is a very simple thing to achieve, you go in and out of an alpha state whenever you're watching television, when you're relaxed, when you're meditating. So just slowing down the brainwaves into that nice alpha state gives you better access to the subconscious mind. And so when you're asking the right questions to the subconscious in that state, better answers can bubble up. It's almost like you're sitting in a movie theater. You might remember things, you might see things, you might hear things, you might just feel things in your body. I love to say that there's no wrong answers, because so many people are living in some form of fear that anything they do or relief is not available to them. They're not worthy, they're not good enough. They could have gotten scolded as children, or any type of trauma growing up where something was overwhelming to you can get cemented in there. And what's fascinating from having done so many hundreds of these, is that sometimes the trauma is major, like, being beaten bloody by a parent who was alcoholic and had all kinds of problems, or it can be something relatively major, like a parent yelling at them, for not doing their homework properly. And again, it doesn't matter what happens to us. It's our interpretation of the world, ourselves, and other people. That's the thing that gets fired and wired in there. And that's what needs to be adjusted if you want the subconscious mind to start behaving differently.
Okay, now you say that's what needs adjusted. So in this state, you're able to identify some traumatic incident that the person's been holding on to.
Right. And I do that
Then
with the
what?
emotions. So when I'm first connecting to somebody, I often ask them, what are three feelings that you'd give anything to not feel anymore? So typically things I hear are things like fear, anxiety, not feeling whole, feeling empty, anger. And then if we wave a magic wand, and those feelings go away, what are three feelings that you'd give anything to feel consistently? And that's the GPS map. Because like if you call a travel agent, you want to go from Los Angeles to New York, you need to know that you're in Los Angeles and you want to go to New York. So right. Those are the two points that is the beginning and end. And then when we go into that relaxed state and we start dialoguing with the subconscious mind, it will, answers will just bubble up. You'll remember incidences. When you say, when you're taking the subconscious mind back to the root of a problem, the origin of a problem, where it started, images will come up, remembrances will come up, feelings will come up, and then we just work with what comes up. So it's part art and part science, but there's a very clear way that the subconscious mind works. Once you understand how it works, what it wants, and then what its needs are, you can meet those needs, but in present day rather than in the old way. For example, a lot of times people with migraines and people who grind their teeth at night, they will have gotten that message as a 6-year-old. Their parents are fighting. What are you going to do? You might just stand there and tense up and grit your teeth. But if you're adult who's 30 years old and an accomplished person and a professional, and every time you get stressed out, you're clenching your neck, shoulders, and teeth, that can be a problem. That's not an appropriate way for somebody as a 30-year-old to manage stress. So the subconscious mind isn't going to change that pattern until it can see, oh, clenching my teeth and tightening my shoulders, that's hurting me. It's not helping me. And then there's ways to get the subconscious mind to be willing to change. So I make a customized audio at the end of each session that gets the subconscious mind. So it's transitioning from being in that state where it doesn't want to be into where it does want to be, but it has to see that, oh, that way's dangerous. That way's bad. I don't want that anymore. It'll let it go like it would let go a hot poker. But it needs that pathway to where it wants to go. Because it's well known with trauma that the brain prefers an unfamiliar hell. I'm sorry, it prefers a familiar hell to an unfamiliar heaven.
Right.
That's like Stockholm syndrome. It just thinks that what's familiar is safe, even if what's familiar is horrible. So you have to create that neural pathway from the familiar hell to the unfamiliar heaven. It's also been described that most of us have dirt roads to what we do want and superhighways to what we don't want. So we want to shift that around so you have a dirt road to what you don't want and a superhighway to what you do want. So that's done through the audio tape that people are listening to that's customized to them in a language that their subconscious mind can understand, because it's different for different people.
Yeah. So is that almost like using a series of affirmations as a mantra that get
Another
at the
great question.
core?
Yeah. So the reason affirmations don't work, it's been described that, in the subconscious mind, you have big fish swimming around the old beliefs. And then you have the little tiny affirmations that are little baby fish that are trying to, grow up in this environment. But the big fish is running around, swimming around and eating up the little fish.
Yeah.
So the key to this whole thing is to get to that big fish so that you're deactivating that. Because if that's still swimming around and it's saying you're not worthy, you're not good enough, other people can get relief, but relief is not for you. You're going to suffer. You're bad. You deserve bad things to happen to you. If that big fish is swimming around in there, gobbling up all your newfound affirmations, then the affirmations don't get a chance to take hold. So that's the reason affirmations don't work, again, because it's the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what is on this tape. If it's not an affirmation that keeps reminding you of what you need to do, or what you need to transmute into something positive from whatever negativity's there.
Excellent question. It's language that the subconscious mind can understand, because once you understand what the programming is and what the subconscious mind is trying to accomplish and what the subconscious mind is willing to give up, because it really prefers something else, it needs to be in language that the subconscious mind will respond to, so that as you're drifting off to sleep at night and you're nice and susceptible to those positive words and instructions that the subconscious mind can understand, then it will accept it. It's as I say, it's part art and part science. But once you understand how the subconscious mind operates and what it wants and how to change it, then you can put in language that it will accept. In other words, if you say something that just the subconscious mind immediately rejects, like, I'm a millionaire and I don't have to worry about money, when you've got a pile of bills sitting there that you don't know how you're going to pay, the subconscious mind is just going to reject that. So you have to create languaging that's true so that the subconscious mind will accept it. And it's an hour would not be enough time for me to explain how to do that with everybody in every circumstance.
No, I guess as you're talking me through that, I'm trying to picture a curriculum in a training program or a school where you may have gotten your training to understand exactly how to do this.
Great question. So I trained personally with Marissa Peer several years ago. And I've also, Tony Robbins, whether you love him or not, there's a reason he gets $1 million for 8 hours of his time. No, he really knows how to leverage the mind extremely well. Um, uh, and he's influenced millions of people around the world. Uh, so I learned a lot from him. I've done hundreds of hours of his stuff, and I've done hundreds of hours of Dr. Joe Dispenza. So he also is very good at, again, helping raise the heart and brain coherence. And what Joe is doing is he's measuring what is happening, as people are doing this, what's happening in the blood, what's happening in the brain. He's measuring brain waves. He's measuring a microbiome. I was in his microbiome study a little over 2 years ago. And even if people don't think they're doing this properly, they're still getting measurably market improvement in their microbiome, which is huge from a holistic medicine point of view. That said, a lot of people who do Dr. Joe's work love the work that I do because it's so individualized. Somebody who perhaps has been meditating for years and has gotten lots of benefit from that. A lot of times they're still struggling with some particular block that's unique to them, and they want to go in and find out what that is, why it's implanted there, and how to leverage it to move it out of there.
Yeah. So this is a personal curiosity. Have you worked with anybody who's had essential tremors?
That's a great question. Actually, for that, I have not personally. So I would say if there was any type of a stress element that made it worse, then this would be a very likely thing to help it. Anything made worse with stress, I have found, has been beautifully responsive, because I find that this very nicely turns back that sympathetic dial way back into the parasympathetic mode. Because again, if your fire alarm is going off in your house all the time, how useful is that? It's not giving you any information. It's making you numb. It's making you, want to shut down, run away. It's just not helping you at all. So you want to dial that back so that it's firmly in the parasympathetic mode. So your immune system is operating, your hormonal system is operating, your digestive system is operating. I have had people that had become allergic to everything but 5 foods. They had developed babesia, mast cell inflammation, Lyme's disease. Those symptoms had all become overblown because of the stress response they were having to an event that had happened in their life. I had a gal that had been attacked by a Rottweiler and had to go through 6 jaw surgeries and was living in fear of losing more teeth, having more surgeries, and she had developed a choking disorder, so that every time she ate, she was at risk of going to the hospital to have the blockage in her throat relieved. And she had 3 young children, so this was a huge burden on the whole family. And she knew instantly in the first session that this was it. She was able to take that sympathetic response that she had developed during the dog attack and dial it way back so that it wasn't active. She, in 2 sessions didn't have that issue anymore. So if something is aggravated with stress, I would say yes, this more than likely will be wonderful. And if you do the Joe Dispenza stuff, also, I know that people have gotten results with tremors and Parkinson's, even ALS. Apparently, they've had people be responsive with. So one way to find out what's going on in that world is just to go on YouTube and type in Dispenza plus whatever it is you're interested in, and there's so many testimonials going up there. If you want to see my testimonials, you can go on my YouTube channel and my Instagram, and you'll find the people that I just mentioned and many others that have rapidly gotten over whatever it is they were struggling with. I do. Anxiety is a big one. Fear is a big one. PTSD is a big one. But anything worse with stress, likely I can help them.
Yeah. Okay. I've done a lot of research on tremors, and I have them myself, so that's why the research. And I'm still looking for, where, because they haven't identified causes for this, or why it appears, or in some people why it disappears after a while. So there's a lot of mystery around that. But I'll take a deeper look at Dr. Joe's work and see what's there. So I imagine you're also acquainted with the Heart Math Institute.
Yes, I love heart math. Anybody that's giving people tools to have a better life, I think is fabulous, and I love the research behind them and what they're doing.
Yeah, they just have so much research out of there. It's there's a lot to read, a lot to do. So, getting back to your spiritual life, then, where would you say you are uh, with the concept of God and your connection to whatever that higher power is, if you believe in a higher power, and you know, how have you
I'm so
gotten to
glad you
that
asked.
point? Go ahead.
I'm so glad you asked me that question. Actually, I was just on a podcast. One of my clients, who he just started a podcast called The Conscious Christian, and we were specifically talking about this. I think having a connection to the higher power is immensely healing, and most often people get a deeper connection to that when they do my process, because again, it's pulling out the old information that is essentially blinding them and keeping them from fully experiencing that. I would say the Joe Dispenza stuff is also very much in alignment with connecting to. That's why he called his documentary Source. It's connecting to Source, and when you have that appreciation and that relationship with that energy that animates us, it makes you stronger. It makes you calmer. It makes you more peaceful. It makes you more insightful, more responsive to responding to your environment appropriately. I think it improves. I think it improves everything across the board. So I think that's a brilliant question. And in fact, I used to ask my people before the process, what is your name for source, universe, God? And the reason I asked that is because some people had not good experiences with their church. Some people were even violated by church clergy. So for certain people, it evokes a fear response, which isn't what we want. So I always want to know in their language, what do they call their creator? What do they call universal wisdom? What do they call what is that for them? And I would say most of the time people do call it God, but some people have that fear response put in from an early age from a bad experience.
All right, I'm going to get back to you. So that's all about other people. What about you?
I am very connected. God is totally part of my life. I, that, it's a great question because I wasn't raised with religion per se. So I just developed the relationship over time. It when you do intensive meditation, when you raise that heart and brain coherence, you're connecting to source energy, and it feels good. It feels not good to be separated from it. I'm looking at the Course in Miracles behind you, and if there clearly is. I recently interviewed Mark Gober, who wrote An End to Upside Down Thinking, and that's all about quantum physics and us. And scientifically, that is proving out to be, what is. Like the work with Joe Dispenza, there's you have a standard deviation that is any plot of information or somebody's height, somebody's weights, brain waves, and they usually fall within 3 standard deviations. Well, they're measuring brain waves that are 50 standard deviations and 200 standard deviations and 400 standard deviations that are associated with these massive healings. So one can't help but be curious and go, well, what's going on here? What is happening that is against all odds, that is connected to this massive healing that people are having? So it's not even up for debate. If you read the science behind this, there is universal intelligence that is guiding things and that we have the ability to connect to.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that in your world, I think that's that must be a very sad world, a very scary world, a very lonely world. So there's been countless books about, people that have God in their life, people who have connection to spirit, connection to sport source. The outcomes are just mentally, emotionally, and physically so much better.
Right, right. Okay, so you used the word God.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so do you have a prayer life that connects you? Or, I mean,
I
I've
am
always
deeply into
seen
meditation.
prayer as coming out and meditation listening then. So, in that communication, prayer and meditation are connected. But that's from my
Yeah,
perspective. I don't know.
yeah. To me, I mean, I love the prayer of Saint Francis. I love the Ho'oponopono prayer.
Ah, yes.
Um, there's many prayers that I love. In fact, Wayne Dyer said, if you only have a 2-word prayer, let it be thank you. So I use that one a lot because I think the more gratitude that you have, there's 2 forces that I think are very strong: gratitude and forgiveness. And so I like to those come up constantly in the sessions that I do. If you strengthen those areas of your life, then I think you will experience better outcomes. And there's excellent proof for that. In fact, I'm going to look behind me. Wait a minute. I have an interview with these 2 guys coming out. These, I think they've been translated into 30 languages around the world. This is called Leading with Gratitude. They're very big in the business community. They've had, I think, 1.5 million books sold, Adrian Gostick and Chester Elton, but it's a wonderful book on gratitude. And that interview, I believe, is coming out on my podcast in the next week or 2. But again, the data on gratitude, it improves your health, it improves your wealth. If you are grateful and express that gratitude to your family members, to your coworkers, to your employees, and to yourself, then again, you're connecting to that source, you're connecting to God, you're connecting to the universe, you're connecting to universal intelligence. And there's something about that communication at that level. And David Hawkins, who of course is very deeply into muscle testing, he muscle tested the energies associated with all of these feelings. And once you see that what you think and the energy that you put out comes back to you, amplified. It's like you're living in a giant mirror. You intentionally want to choose to be putting out really positive energy. So all of that would be part of my spiritual practice, my
Yeah.
prayer, my God work.
Okay. Yeah, I was recently in a discussion about forest bathing and the whole idea of that exchange with the trees and the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and showing gratitude toward the trees as you walk through a forest or just down the street where there are trees. That's I think a wonderful practice to be able to just look around you and be grateful for so many things that are out there. Yeah.
I'm actually glad you mentioned that. I have an interview coming up on Friday with Daniel L. Everett, who wrote "Don't Sleep, There Are Snakes." He's a missionary that went to live in the Amazon with some of the poorest people there, the Piraha. And he was also a linguist, which is fascinating. If you get his book on Audible, you can listen to him speak this amazing Piraha language, which he went there knowing none of and had to learn. But it's very full of humility and full of grace, and he just left with so much respect for who these people were, because they were very deeply connected to nature. And it was very humbling for him to learn about them and the dignity with which they lived their lives, even though they were very, very poor by our standards, but rich by, if you're measuring how happy they were not on antidepressants. They laughed and played a lot. They didn't have a lot of amenities, like no amenities.
Yeah.
They hunted for their food and gathered for their food and did everything very primitively. But as far as being gracious and being, true to who they were, and have integrity and laugh and really experience life more to the fullest, I would say, we might have something to learn from them.
Yeah, I discovered that on a trip to Rwanda where my wife and I spent 7 months. And, you can look around and say, boy, these people don't have much. But you can also look around and say, boy, are they joyful and happy,
I've had lawyer friends go to Africa and just be complete. Actually, I don't know too many people who have gone there and haven't been transformed. Uh, when you see people that are just living in the moment, connected to nature, happy and joyful and connected and living in the present moment. None of them are in therapy. None of them are on antidepressants.
Yeah.
None of them are committing suicide. In fact, the concept of committing suicide in an environment like that is just they're incredulous. They're like, why would you even consider doing such a thing? So what is it about that? What do we have to learn from that culture? Because clearly, we've got a lot of people on antidepressants and we have a lot of suicide.
Yeah.
What's wrong here? In the wealthiest country in the world.
Right.
Or one of them.
Yeah. Well, I've got one eye on the clock here, and we're getting toward the end. And you may know from having experienced a couple of my podcasts that at the end of each podcast, I ask the guest to leave our audience with a few words of wisdom. I think you've already given us some, but this is your opportunity to focus in on what you would like to leave the audience with.
2 words of wisdom. I would say change is so doable if you have the right roadmap. If we want to quote scripture, Jesus said, "You will know them by their fruits." So look at a teaching system that is yielding good fruits, that people are experiencing great health. Again, I think Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing great work. People who do what I do and help people find what's stuck in their subconscious mind. You can go on and read all the reviews and just see that people, there are ways. I know the Course in Miracles behind you there has all kinds of people that have upgraded their lives with that. So if you apply the right tools and the right thinking, there's a ton of uplifting podcasts today. There's Wim Hof and his breathing work and his cold therapy that has helped many people. So there are so many ways to improve your life if you just plug in and start applying these things. And you don't have to get 25% better every day. If you just get 1% better each and every day, there's a fabulous book called Atomic Habits, and it'll break down the math on that. You're not 360% better by the end of the year because it compounds on itself. You're actually 24 times better by the end of the year. So just little adjustments, little changes, and knowing deep in your heart that as you apply these things, you can experience a much better quality of life.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. This has been great. And audience, as always, take what resonates with you and put the rest on the shelf until you're ready to deal with it, and then pull it back down. Until next time, this has been your spiritual journey.